Madam Speaker, and I'd start by congratulating you on your election just yesterday to the high office of Speaker of this place. Heartfelt congratulations. And I know you'll bring your humanity and spirit to that role, as others have said already, hugely important for the life and productivity of this place. All the very best. Can I congratulate all of the new members elected in recent weeks to this place. A significant achievement personally, and I know at the beginning of significant work for each of your districts. As the member for Unley has just spoken, I might just say some special words of congratulation to the member for Unley and Minister for Child Protection. And in rising to support the motion, just to mention the reference to St Matthew's is a background and legacy that we share. I grew up and was influenced very much by the community at St Matthew's, and in the circumstances of this motion, I know Her Excellency will appreciate that common legacy as well. St Matthew's and its community has been very significant to so many of us over a long period of time, and so I recognise that and appreciate the remarks of the member for Unley in terms of the influence that it had on her and her family on moving to South Australia. Madam Speaker, it is perhaps ever more on each occasion appreciated by me the significance of being entrusted with the responsibility and opportunity to represent my district of Heysen in this place. This is now the third time that's occurred and hugely humbling for me, and I want to assure my community, the electors of Heysen, that I stand here with them on behalf of each and every one of my magnificent communities throughout the hills. And I think I'll say a few words about just how much of a community endeavour this last election campaign was, and I just say that I assure each and every one of my community that I'm here to serve them in every way I best can over this 4 years ahead. Now, members of this place will be forgiven for being parochial, and we've heard from the member for Unley talking about how South Australia is the best place in the world. That's true, but I can tell members, as I have repeatedly, that of course the Adelaide Hills district of Heysen is the best place in the best state in the best country in the world, and if anybody was in any kind of doubt about that or looking for some sort of evidence, well, that was made official just yesterday. I don't know about this kind of this double decimal point, comparator to somewhere else, but we all know in South Australia that the Adelaide Hills just got the great big official nod as the best place in the whole world, and so I can just add my voice to that, from Montacute in the north to Yundi in the south and all the way through the Adelaide Hills. I am fortunate to represent the greatest place ever. At this election, as is the want of the Electoral Districts Boundaries Commission, entirely out of all of our hands, we had changes in Heysen, this time entirely adding new areas. About 10% of the electors added on this election, bringing into Heysen the Adelaide Hills Council areas of Balhanna and Oakbank, and also Forest Range. And so I do want to single out those areas in Lenswood as well for particular mention on this occasion, I presented myself as a new candidate to those communities on this occasion, and while I was familiar to so many throughout the Hills, it was a matter for me to endeavour to get to grips with the issues of key importance to those communities on this occasion, and I thank them in particular for the trust that they've placed in me. And I think in that regard, the change, reflecting as it does the substantial growth of Mount Barker itself in neighbouring Carville, the change it does bring into Heysen communities that have interests in common, and we will look to work together in every way to speak up for the interests of Heysen. I said to my communities, both long-standing and new, that I was local, experienced and effective. And I said that against a background of my work over 8 years to this point, and I give my assurance that I will continue to endeavour and to be better on in each step in each of those three respects. I might, Madam Speaker, just single out one way in which that was very significantly displayed, and it's one that you are familiar with as well. An issue that was not primarily one of government policy or indeed direct government responsibility, although the Labor government had an opportunity to step in, which it declined to do, and that was working with the community and those districts that for nearly 100 years had been at the core of bringing into existence and then sustaining the Stirling Hospital, the Stirling Community Hospital. And we go back to April of 2023, when my communities received, pretty much out of the blue, notice from the leadership of the Stirling Hospital, the board, that for a variety of reasons that were put shortly, the Stirling Hospital was on its way closing and would be looking for possible new rented premises somewhere else. And it was a moment, and I think, you know, as members representing our different districts in this place will appreciate, you know, you don't always have complete high-level galvanised community engagement with every single thing that goes on. But this was one such occasion. And I was proud to work together with communities that were moved, in many ways, for the first time perhaps in a long time, to say, no, that won't stand. No, we will do something about that. And so from April 2023, really intensively for the balance of that year, communities far and wide who were reminded that they come from places that made those first initial contributions to the founding of the hospital were moved to action. Members of the community, senior members of the community who'd served on the board from time to time over those years, or who had made some contribution, perhaps via volunteer work in the Stirling Community Op Shop, all in their own ways, gathered, were reminded, were moved that community commitment, community involvement and community response can actually make a significant difference. And over the course of that year in particular, the work continues, a complete turnaround was achieved. And so from really devastating news in April of 2023 to the most welcome news one could hope for right at the end of that year, reversing it entirely around and saying, no, it's okay, we've found a way through, we'll stay put. The Stirling Hospital has a future at Stirling. It stays with me because it was an example of what we all know is so possible, so productive, and so marvellous to be part of when community can get together to make a difference. That work and the work to secure the future long-term of the Stirling Hospital remains front and centre. Nothing's ever easy, but there are many for whom that will be continuing important work. Continuing on as the member for Heysen and prevailing in a contest is not a matter for me as an individual. There's no way I would have been able to do this on my own. We talk about and act as Team Heysen, and that extends all the way through the community. But in a core sense, I want to pay particular tribute to my Heysen staff, who for the entire period, including that highly important issue that I've just outlined, have been at my right hand, my left hand, front, back, driving forward together. And I recognise in particular Becky, Jake and Sally for their work for the community at all times. Team Heysen, indispensable. Thank you to each of them, and their work continues day to day. I think just one small departure on this point. We, I think, have a tradition in Australia of those in the background, whether they're ministerial staff or electorate staff, that they're really nameless and not public facing or recognised. In the United States, it's quite the opposite. You have really quite high profile staff who are publicly well known, and I think while respecting privacy, it's a good thing to sometimes have a bit more public profile among those who are making such a difference for our community. So to Becky and Jake and Sally, I make special reference and acknowledgement. In terms of the campaign, I also want to pay particular tribute to the head of my campaign committee, so well known, of course, in this Parliament, the Honourable Stephen Wade, former Minister for Health and a long-standing member of the Legislative Council. Stephen, in his quiet, modest and service-driven way, was by my side all the way through, made such a significant commitment, and maybe just because he's might be watching online, I make special mention of Dad, who, in his own way, took upon the task of getting around the district and making himself known. Some might say making a nuisance of himself by actively, waving, showing the sign and greeting people in various parts of the district, and everyone's got their own perspective on that. He'd suffered a mishap about 18 months or so ago now, where he'd burned his legs rather badly, his own misadventure, and so he felt he wasn't able to walk quite as much as he's had on previous campaigns to join me door knocking. So he thought he'd apply this as the main contribution, and I hope that he might be back walking soon. But that was the visible presence throughout the campaign. So thanks, Dad. And I also want to say, because he'll be, he might be a bit surprised by it. John Michelmore of Prospect Hill, thank you, John, in your quiet way, setting the standard for what community support was all about. I really appreciated your quiet support. All of it, north, south, east and west, heart and soul and community throughout. Madam Speaker, here we are dealing with the address and reply, and we've heard just yesterday from Her Excellency in reading the government speech. There is indeed important work ahead for the Labor government, and there's no sugarcoating it. We, as the Liberal opposition, have had a tough campaign. We are in reduced circumstances. The numbers on the floor tell a story. It's true, and what I will be doing as a leading member of our Liberal opposition in this place is ensuring that we will hold the government to account. We will be focused on the priorities that matter for South Australians. We're making sure that the government does too, and we'll be hearing from us about that. The economy, of course, is front and centre, and we've seen already in the campaign that was led so ably by the member for Schubert, Ashton Hearn, the Leader of the Opposition, a clear demonstration of what it means to campaign on the priorities that matter. We were clear with all South Australians that we recognise that South Australians are crying out for a more affordable South Australia, a South Australia that has a better health system, and a South Australia that is characterised by stronger and safer communities. We'll continue to focus on those key priorities. More specifically, we have been focused from day one, and indeed over the weeks since the election, on the key priority of fuel security and ensuring that we have appropriate reserves and access to supply. And there was already some concern yesterday in what we could see as some reticence from the Premier to really act quite decisively in that regard. Now, we've seen news that the Prime Minister has made some commitment nationally following National Cabinet earlier today in relation to fuel security, but not before time. And we hear the Premier talking about his friendly relationship with the Prime Minister. South Australians will be expecting that the Premier do more and do better to stand up for South Australians, and that includes our calls for action on payroll tax. We know that the windfall gains to the government and the budget far exceed the cost of increasing the payroll tax threshold, and yet we've seen pretty clearly from the Premier that there is a reluctance from this Labor government to take that prudent measure to help South Australian business to thrive in challenging circumstances. So we'll be making sure that we continue to make that priority clear. For weeks and weeks and weeks now, we have been urging South Australian Labor government to apply free public transport for commuters in South Australia in this fuel crisis. Those pleas have so far fallen on deaf ears. We will continue to prosecute the case for the application of free public transport during this crisis, just as it's been successfully applied interstate already. And just in case people have not quite got to a point of completely glazing over on the primary failure on the last occasion, and I recognise the presence of the new Minister for Health, ramping is as bad as it has ever been in the history of South Australia, and that's notwithstanding Malinowskis Labor coming to power in 2022 with their key promise to fix ramping. It's never been worse, and there is no solution remotely in frame. So that needs to be addressed as a matter of priority. So priorities, Madam Speaker, are hugely important. And I certainly recognise the member for Unley's urging in this regard, that we work together towards solutions in the interest of all South Australians. Let's certainly do that, but let's not see government by slogan and then failure. Let's ensure that there is substance behind what we say in this place. So, priorities, Madam Speaker. And I mentioned the economy at the outset. It's become clearer and clearer at a federal level that the federal Labor government is leading Australia on the road to ruin economically. We've heard the Reserve Bank of Australia admonishing the Treasurer ahead of the budget, and it's clear that federal spending is driving inflation, and federal spending has been a key contributor to yesterday's decision of the Reserve Bank of Australia to increase interest rates. And it looks as though that's not the end of the road. And so there are key federal Labor responsibilities to be taken care of. But I recognise what our Liberal Shadow Treasurer in another place, the Honourable Ben Hood, has been making clear all the way through in this regard, right here in South Australia. And that is that when we hear the Premier crowing about what a great situation South Australia's in, and there'll be more to say about that, have a look at how much of those positive economic indicators are driven by public spending. Have a look at how much of those key indicators are driven by overspending, and as South Australians will, increasingly, as we head towards what is projected to be $50 billion of state debt over the years ahead, have a look at basic competence against budget from this government. We saw $4.5 billion in spending over budget over the course of the last term. And we hear sort of chirping from the Treasurer about, questions about spending and so on. First point, obviously much more to say about this in the budget in a few short weeks. First point, government responsibility and competence. Tell us what your budgets are and then meet your budgets. Demonstrate trust to South Australians and competence by meeting the budgets that you set for yourselves. So that'll be a key task. It's been a key contributor to the inflation circumstance that we see, and it needs to turn around. Madam Speaker, when we see Paul Starrick writing in the Advertiser just earlier this month about circumstances having shifted dramatically, the honeymoon being over, the reality setting in, that things have changed, and those realities are going to bite. And we've seen the Advertiser's editorials over recent days spelling out that reality that is biting. I mentioned I'm proud to be taking on some new responsibilities as Shadow Minister for Housing and Planning, and in that regard, returning to an area of some familiarity for my brief time as Minister for Planning. It's been made so clear that key to addressing economic challenges ahead will be making sure that we achieve in the housing space, and I'm very aware of the remarks of the Master Builders Association's national chief, who has highlighted just how short of the mark Labor has been nationally. The same is true in South Australia, and I'll be making sure that I'm holding the government to account in relation to achieving what it says it will achieve in that regard. So much more ahead, Madam Speaker. I give the assurance, as I did at the outset, to my electors of Heysen, I'm here for you every single day, and as Deputy Leader of the Opposition, I'm so proud to serve alongside Leader of the Opposition, Member for Schubert, Ashton Hearn, and together with all of my colleagues here and in the other place, we will be working every day for all South Australians. I commend the motion.